It is Saturday night, Minneapolis, Minnesota. My name is Jim Comparoni, publisher, SpartanMag.com. Doing it a little bit differently today. Usually Paul Konodike is with me for Postgame VCast on the road, wherever we are in the world covering the Michigan State Spartans. Paul is back home in East Lansing getting ready to cover Michigan State versus Tennessee basketball exhibition. You can get that coverage at SpartanMag.com. I don't have my usual microphone. Don't you have the usual camera? Don't have the usual lighting. I was going to do a kind of a solo VCast. But I just decided to turn on the Spartan Mag Live and do it this way. I'm going to do a couple sound checks here to see if people come in and let me know if the sound is working. And if so, we'll just go ahead and get a Spartan Mag Live going and have a good time with it. Go ahead and give me a post. Let me know if you can hear it. I'll go ahead and post here. Let's see. Just want to make sure that the microphone, we're using a laptop right now rather than a microphone. I want to make sure it's working. We're getting a thumbs up there. Just want to make sure. Go ahead and post and let me know. I'm seeing the likes. In the meantime, if you can hear me and you're watching this later, if you're not a SpartanMag.com subscriber, get over to SpartanMag.com. Become one of the many around the world that subscribe to SpartanMag.com. You can hear me. Thanks a lot, Kirk Baldwin. We really appreciate that. Let me go ahead and we'll get rolling then. Become a SpartanMag.com subscriber. Give us a like here on the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We've got about 10 or 12 mailbag questions. I requested that over the Spartan Mag Underground Bunker message board. And people did post some questions. We will get to those in a minute. We'll try to get through this quickly. Right now it is 8:10 p.m. Central Time. We'll go through it. Michigan State loses 27-12. Congratulations to those of you that are still watching Michigan State football. If you went through all 4 quarters and got through it and watched the whole thing, you deserve a helmet sticker. You deserve Hobbit sticks or whatever your favorite is out of East Lansing. I'm drinking straight gin right now. That's a lie. It's water. From the land of 10,000 lakes, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Huntington Bank Stadium, Michigan State. And the stats are for losers category. Outgained today 400 to 300. You saw it. Michigan State's special teams looked good early. Offense was terrible. Defense hung in there for a while. Collapsed in the fourth quarter. Marlon Barnett afterwards, we were talking to him. And a good question was asked, do you run out of things to tell this team? And he says he's an encourager by nature, and he keeps encouraging the guys to keep going after it. I don't see him getting depressed. He's not that type of guy. For him to take over this job 3 weeks in and to do this coaching job for 10 games, 11 weeks, the longest 11 weeks in Michigan State football history, you couldn't pick a better guy to have a positive disposition. He said this week he was going to be a little bit harder on the guys, a little bit more of himself in terms of being demanding. A couple of guys weren't here today. Malik Carr didn't make the trip. He was late to a special teams meeting, didn't react to it real well. So he's gone for 1 week. Barnett was asked after the game, will he be back? And he says he thinks he will be. He also mentioned he had a little aggravating injury of some sort. Tumise Adeleye, no longer with the team. Disappointment this year. And that just goes back to, Michigan State in some ways rolling the dice, in some ways doing some, I don't want to say blind betting, but relying on the transfer portal. Going to the portal, get Tumise Adeleye, 6'4", 280, had the correct size. They wanted to get bigger at defensive end. 4 stars, 5 stars, depending on when he committed to Ohio State, when he signed with A&M. But like I said before the season, a lot of the star coverage people made a big deal about him coming to the program. But I cautioned everybody. I said, he's got potential, but he'd only played 2.5 football games since 2019, prior to this year. In 2020, his senior year in high school, did not have a high school season because of COVID. 2021, redshirted at Texas A&M. 2022, last year, played 2.5 games, got injured, went into the portal. Michigan State gets him. Michigan State celebrating getting the guy. 3 football games in 4 years or whatever it was. Looked okay in the spring game, but you saw him through the course of the season. Really didn't provide a whole lot. And I didn't come down on him about that because he hadn't played much football, right? But last week his snaps were down to 14 snaps against Michigan, no longer with the team. And just another as a season starts to teeter like this, you start to see some of the roadkill start to pile up, and we're seeing some of that for sure right now with Michigan State. So Michigan State, are there any positives? Sam Leavitt comes in, 8 out of 12, 73 yards, rushed 6 times for 52 yards, took over in the fourth quarter, took them on a scoring drive, touchdown drive. Michigan State had not had a touchdown drive since the third quarter of the Rutgers game, right? 3 weeks ago. So Leavitt looked good. Hey, Leavitt looks pretty good at the end of the Michigan game. Quick feet, couple of good throws, fourth down pass against Michigan. I know it was Michigan's backups. Fourth down pass on a square into Parachek on 4th and 14. The officials should have given them first down yardage on that. That was a real nice throw. His one interception against Michigan, designed roll to his right-handed roll into his left, sidearm, and goes through Trey Mosley's hands. Trey kind of did this one. I've seen them coach it. They probably wanted this in terms of hand selection. Got on him, interception. One of his better throws went down as an interception. Today looked pretty good, and he was asked afterwards, Barnett was asked, is Leavitt starting next week? And he kind of said, we'll look at it, we will evaluate it. One of these questions that I have in the mailbag, do I think Leavitt's going to start next week? My guess, maybe so. We'll get into that here in a second. My guess, I think he will. I think he probably will. They stuck with Noah Kim for a few weeks. Do they stick with Hauser another week? These are delicate, interesting questions. And I've got a few more thoughts on that, and we'll expand in a moment. All right, the big question, the onside kick. Michigan State had just driven down there, cut it to 17-12, 8:37 left in the game. Michigan State has momentum. Jonathan Kim had been kicking touchbacks all day. It's almost a guarantee they're going to be starting at their own 25-yard line. Put pressure on them. The last throw that Kelly McManus, the quarterback from Minnesota, the last pass attempt that he had at that point was that other underthrown on the run, short, intercepted by Jaden Mangum. That was his most recent throw. Not a real good quarterback. Did okay today. What was he? 14 out of 22 for 200. Last week against a very good Iowa defense, Cal McManus quarterbacked them to a victory, but he was well under 50%, not very good against a very good pass defense. Michigan State does not have a very good pass defense. So, his most recent pass attempt, interception. Michigan State has momentum, touchdown. Michigan State elects to go for an onside kick. Not a good decision. Harlan Barnett was asked about it. He said, hey, we wanted to keep it going. We wanted to catch him. We put that in. We thought we had it. It was executed well. He liked the way it was kicked. He thought the guy made a good play. He said, hey, if we get the onside kick recovery, everybody thinks it's a good call. It didn't work, so they get it. So everybody thinks it's a bad call. That's fair. Yes, it was a bad call. I love Harlan Barnett. I've loved his disposition for a long time. I appreciate the time that he's given me as a reporter over the years, but I disagree with that call. And he's trying to pull something out there, trying to spark something. He coached for Mark D'Antonio, who had a real great sense as to when to pull out trick plays or the unexpected. Barnett's done it 3 times this year. Not really unexpected in terms of trick plays or fake punts or whatever, but that was a trick, did not work, especially at that time, 8 minutes to go. You can't get deep, you play defense, you're down by, 17-12, you're down by 5 points. Could have been a turning point of the game, but instead the onside kick became the turning point. So, I equate that to going forward on 4th down deep in their own territory against Iowa in a low-scoring defensive game. Gave Iowa a terrible offense, a short field. Just a field goal, but in a low-scoring game. 3 points were valuable in that game. Going forward early in the Michigan game, Michigan had just scored 7-0. Michigan State drives to near midfield, goes for it. Aggressive, whatever, I don't know what the metrics say, but those were his 3 big rolling the dice decisions since he's been interim coach, and all 3 backfired. I'm not saying the Iowa game changed on that decision, but it wasn't a good one. His sense as to when to roll the dice has not been so good in his time as interim coach. So, Nate Carter, Michigan State running back, held to 4.0 yards per carry. Not too bad. Had an 18-yarder in there. Only 11 carries. Only 13 tailback carries today because Michigan State kept going 3 and out Alante Brown, backup running back, former wide receiver, gains 5 yards on that one. Didn't look bad on an outside zone. Might have been a pin and pull. I can't remember. It was an outside run. Jaron Mangum, 1 carry, 2 yards. He was kind of on a pitch count last week. Only 1 carry today for 2 yards. He's been getting healthier. He ran it pretty hard on that one. As a big back, not much room. Might they have wanted to slam him in there a little bit more? I'm not sure. But Caden Hauser, 12 out of 22, 117 yards, 2 rushes, 6 yards. Hauser, you can see, struggles with arm strength a little bit. My biggest criticism of Hauser today, a couple times when nothing was open. On 3rd down, he threw it away. A couple of times, 1 or 2 times, Levitt had 3rd down and tucked it and ran. Now, Levitt has quicker feet, more athletic than Hauser, but a couple of those 3rd down situations, instead of just throwing it away, I'm thinking, tuck it, run, see if you can generate something. I think one was on the edge of field goal territory. Ended up missing a 52-yarder. Get a little bit more, maybe get a little closer, even if you don't get a first down. Hauser's the guy from Las Vegas, Southern California. Today, 32 degrees, 31 degrees. Freezing temperatures. I know that he's a redshirt freshman. He practiced in cold weather at the end of last season. By now, he's not totally new to this, but he is still relatively new. You know, he mentioned in the Rutgers game that's the first time he had ever played a game in the rain. Played in some rain last week. Now the freezing cold. I'm sure that didn't help matters, but he did not look comfortable today. He hangs in the pocket longer than Noah Kim does. Noah Kim was always uneasy in the pocket. So Michigan State keeps revolving door at quarterback, trying to land on somebody. Not finding much, although Levitt looked good at the end of the Michigan game. I thought looked good today. Throws a nice ball. The interception that he threw is cover 2. They didn't play much cover 2 today. Cover 2, the corner kind of lets him go. And he's thrown in the cover 2 hole, but the corner did a good job sinking on it. And interception 1st and 10. Plus, you know, he's got him going. At that point, they'd scored. The onside kick had failed. They'd scored down, 15 points or whatever it was, 12 points. And there's a sense of urgency. He's a freshman. Does he make that throw on 1st and 10 if the game is tied? Probably not. But it's time to take a chance, take a risk. Threw that one, interception. Probably he'll have to learn from that in terms of seeing cover 2, but I thought Levitt looked pretty good. Anyway, special teams looked good. Jonathan Kim, 2 field goals, all those touchbacks in the first half. Eckley, 52-yarder, 54-yarder in the first quarter. A 34-yarder that was fielded at the 6. I think 2 punts inside the 10. Other than the onside kick, special teams were good. If special teams had been that good against Iowa, you win the game. If they'd been that good against Rutgers, you win the game. Instead, Michigan State, 2-6, 0-5, 7 straight losses in Big Ten play. That's the longest losing streak, the longest conference losing streak in Michigan State football history. Sad times for Michigan State for sure. Didn't have to be this way. Pretty much almost had that Iowa game won. Did have the Rutgers game won. Lose this game by 15 points, similar to the Maryland game. I'll be done in a few minutes. Are we good? Okay, that's fine. And as far the other thing that was similar to the Rutgers game is the rushing defense. Rutgers, here, this is the deal. In the fourth quarter, Michigan State going into the game, going into the fourth quarter, these are the stats. First downs, Michigan State only 8 first downs. So Michigan State getting 3 and outs, not getting their defense time to rest. Defense wore down for other reasons also. Michigan State on 3rd down, 1 out of 10 with Hauser. Levitt comes in, Michigan State's 3 out of 3 on 3rd down. But Minnesota, defensively, this is Michigan State's defense. Through 3 quarters, Minnesota had rushed for 96 yards, 2.9 per carry. 2.9 per carry through 3 quarters. Fourth quarter, 17 rushes, 104. You saw it. 104 yards in the fourth quarter, 6.1 per carry. 104 yards in the fourth quarter. Over 4 quarters, that's 400 yards rushing. That's ugly, right? They did not attempt another pass after that interception that Mangum made. Minnesota, the last 3 times they had the ball, did not attempt a pass. There was one drop back pass attempt, scramble, kept it, and I think that's when Michigan State was called for defensive holding, gained it, and then defensive holding half the distance to the goal line. No, not half the distance, it was just a 10-yarder. But they dropped back to pass on that one, but he but he tucks it and runs. I don't think it was a quarterback draw. If it was, let me know. I just looked at it once. I didn't get a second look at it. Bottom line is, the rush defense, just like the Rutgers game. The Rutgers game, if you might remember, through 3 quarters, Rutgers only had 37 yards rushing, 1.9 per carry. Fourth quarter, 18 rushes, 77 yards, 4.3 per carry. Very much like the Rutgers game. Rutgers, 77 yards rushing in the fourth quarter, didn't tackle well. They kind of froze during the comeback. This one, there was no freezing about it in terms of a comeback. It was just Minnesota was the more physical team, established the run, established dominance, and had 104 yards rushing in the fourth quarter on 17 carries. Michigan State could not stop them. Michigan State a couple times went to a 4-3 when they went to 2 tight ends. In retrospect, there was a key third down. Actually, there was a key third down play at like 3rd and 7. They rushed for about 18 yards, and then on the next one, I think it was a 19-yard touchdown. Michigan State went back to the 4-2-5 because Minnesota was in 3 wide receivers. I'm like, man, they don't want to throw it. They haven't thrown it. Hindsight being 20/20, but I'm thinking, go with the 4-3, have a heavier defense in there. If 3 receivers, if Brule has to cover a guy in the slot, play zone with a 4-3 there. I don't even know if Michigan State has that in their repertoire. I mean, that was something they often did with D'Antonio. Iowa does it all the time. Tressel does it all the time at Wisconsin, even though they're a base 4-2-5 as well. But 4-3 zone, they got a 4-3 zone pass defense. They probably don't work it a whole lot. But at that point, 4-3, play the run. Instead, 4-2-5, you're in their nickel defense, your base defense, which is nickel. They give up a run, and they never threw the ball again. All right, so that rush defense, the run defense, are they getting worn down? There's a question about that in the mailbag. Yes, they're getting worn down, of course. But all teams get worn down. But Michigan State, limited depth, problems across the board. We'll get into those questions here in a second. Pass defense. Kelly McManus throws for 200. Michigan State's pass defense was okay here and there, but gave up some plays. The touchdown, 22-yarder to Jackson against Tatum, on kind of a stuttering slant and go. Tatum on that one, I didn't see if he had inside technique on that. He allows an inside break. Michigan State was in, they were in cover 1 zone. I'm sorry, cover 1 man. Let me see on that one more time. So I'm wondering if he had any safety help on that. If you have outside, there were times last couple of years on the stutter and go. It was 3rd down and 12. That was a back-breaking play. They end up taking, that was before halftime. They take a 10-6 lead at halftime. 3rd down and 12, 22-yard touchdown pass. Little stutter slant. That used to happen a lot last year when someone like Angelo Gross would be in pass coverage, outside technique, allows an inside release with no help in there. And I'm like, was he erroneous in outside leverage? And I don't know, but that's unsound. I never got a clear answer on this one. This one was press cover 1, and I have to look to see if they had a robber in the middle. I don't think they did. I think they blitzed someone. Movie said they blitzed. Sometimes when you hear live, you only get one shot to look at it. And I meant to go back and look at that on Twitter, and I didn't. Anyway, you probably had enough with talking about this game. As far as individuals go, Zion Young missed the first half. He was sick. Played the second half. Simeon Barrow quit the team, came back, didn't start. Played a little bit today. Blocked a field goal. Had a couple of good plays. But there was also a play during the scoring drive early on when they had one of their 8 or 10-yard runs when Simeon Barrow, rather than tackle, went for a strip. They talk about discipline. I mean, going for a strip and a fumble at that juncture. I've covered a lot of good defenses at Michigan State, and that's not the way it's done. He's a good player. He was a good player last year. This year hasn't been quite as good. I don't want to question his discipline on something like that, although I am. But that's an example of what coaches talk about, somebody trying to do too much instead of just doing their job. Jalen Thompson, true freshman defensive end, had a nice tackle for loss when Michigan State was trying to get back in it. He continues to play well, had a favorable PFF rating last week against Michigan. That's a defensive end that looks good for the future, although all futures are in question at this time in a lot of ways. All right, let's go to the mailbag real quick, and then we'll check the comments, and we'll get rolling. Question number 1, Desert Sparty from Arizona. He says, do you think this team will win another game this season? Flat out. I warned about it the other day that they could end up going 2-10, and it wouldn't take a lot for that to happen. You wouldn't have to leave a lot to the imagination to see how that's possible. Indiana looked pretty good today for stretches against Penn State for sure on the road. That Indiana team and Michigan State, that'd be an interesting little scrap, wouldn't it? Nebraska, they've got, they're in a rebuilding situation, but they've got a first-year head coach, Matt Rule, and the first-year coach there has the full attention of his team, and that means something at this time of year. So, are they going to win another game this year? I'm going to say less than 50%. Question number 2, Sparty got 6 from Northville, Michigan. He says, do you think... Actually, that was his question. I think I might have messed that up. Sparty got 6 from Northville, had a different question, and I should go back and check that out. Let me see, is this the one? Yeah, here it is. Sparty got 6 says, what's your percentage on Urban Meyer today? That's what he asks. Last Monday, I was at 15% and dropped it down to 5. I'm going to take it back above 15%. I'm going to push it toward about 17% right now. Okay? We might get into that a little bit here in a moment. Spartan Dynasty from Grand Rapids says, is Lance Leipold a possibility? I've not detected anything on Lance Leipold. I like him a lot, and right when this opening came up, there were some football sources from the Midlands area, sports writers and so forth, that said, hey, keep an eye on Leipold. He's going to want that job, and he would like that challenge. He's a good coach. He's 59 years old. He's doing a good job there in year 3. Now, last year in year 2, they were 7-6. And he took over just a terrible situation. I think he took over a program that only had like 50 guys on scholarship. They lost so many players when they went through their last coaching change. Good coach, really good job at Buffalo. Don't be fooled by his overall record because he's in year 3 taking over a dumpster fire at Kansas. Year 2 got to what? What were they last year? 7-6 or so? And then this year, I was like, what if he goes 9-3? Well, he is, 6-2? He's 6-2. Huge upset over Oklahoma today. I've said earlier that of all these teams that we've been watching with coaches that are potential candidates for Michigan State, the 2, in my opinion, best coached teams I've seen are Kansas and Duke. Duke didn't look very good today. Lost to Louisville 23-0. I foreshadowed that a little bit today at the Underground Bunker message board when I talked about games to watch today with the Michigan State rooting interest in terms of the coaching pool. And if you're a Michigan State fan, you want that coaching pool to be as strong as possible. You want the recent body of work to be as strong as possible so you have a better pool to choose from. But I said that game at Louisville was going to be extremely tough. First of all, Braum is a great coach. Secondly, Louisville's pretty good. Thirdly, Louisville had just come off a maddening loss at Pittsburgh due to turnovers. They had twice as many yards as Pittsburgh, lost that game, and they had a bye week, and it's at Louisville. Meanwhile, Duke was coming off a string of difficult games against USC, Florida State, and somebody else. I'm sorry, not USC. Notre Dame, Florida State, and somebody else. Duke had a real difficult string. They're going on the road. And it was 2 straight games on the road. They were in Tallahassee last week. And they were leading Florida State. Late in the third quarter, Riley Leonard, quarterback, goes down. Put in a backup quarterback, it gets away. Florida State wins the game. To rebound from that, go on the road again, to take on Louisville at Louisville after Louisville's in a bye week. A good Louisville team. Riley Leonard still injured. Bad situation for Duke. And you saw what happened. But make no mistake about it, Duke is a very well-coached team. Go back and watch the first 3 quarters of that game against Florida State. Watch the whole game against Notre Dame. Duke is a well-coached team, but so is Kansas. 59 years old, not ideal, but gosh, if he were 50, he's a good one. But have I detected it? No, I've not seen any. I've not seen any indications that he's been on the chatter list. And I don't mean chatter media. I mean inside the industry. And I don't mean the media industry either, but I've not detected anything with Leipold. But big win against Oklahoma. We talked about him as soon as the job came open, and we had him on the initial watch list. And we'll probably put him back on there, even though he's got to be someone that you're watching. But I think Michigan State strongly not looking to hire someone who's going to be 60 years old next year, unless it's Urban Meyer. Okay, but that's different bodies of work there, right? But Leipold, man, he's won national championships at the Division III level? I don't know. All right, question 4 from Sparty10 from Westland, Michigan. By the way, some of you guys didn't say where you were from, so I'm just putting cities in there. I should have reminded you over at the Underground Bunker message board to say where you're posting from so that we can shout out your hometown a little bit. And also, it's just interesting for the listeners and the viewers. Spar10 from Westland, Michigan, he says, do I think Sam Leavitt will get the starting nod the rest of the year? And there's also a question number 7. I don't know who posted this. I don't have his name. I apologize. He says, is it worth burning a red shirt for this season? You know, in the old days, I would say no. I would say bank the red shirt. The old days without the transfer portal, you bank the red shirt. But these days, with the transfer portal and immediate eligibility elsewhere, if you redshirt him, there's probably less of a chance that he stays. I mean, Leavitt, speaking with him this week, you could tell he's having fun. He genuinely likes Michigan State, but he doesn't know who the next coach is going to be here. Hey, elephant in the room. I'm watching Leavitt out there. He looks good. And I'm thinking to myself, this kid's from Oregon. He was a big-time recruit. Was originally committed to Washington State. Others went after him on the West Coast. Now West Coast teams are coming to the Big Ten. But, hey, it's not like I'm going to, any of my comments are going to tamper the situation. But Oregon's got a very good team. They blew out, who'd they blow out today? They blew somebody out. And Bo Nix is graduating. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, is Sam Leavitt, not that Sam is thinking this, but I'm thinking, is he auditioning for Oregon right now to play for the Oregon Ducks? I'm not saying he was thinking that or doing it. He was trying to win. But in this crappy age of the transfer portal, you don't know which of these players are going to be coming back, which ones want to leave, which ones have a foot outside the door. All of them are going to wait to see who's hired. But the good ones, the young ones, from a long way away from home, you know that other schools are already reaching out to them. There's going to be a lot of poaching going on. And do you even consider it poaching anymore? It's just part of the broken college football system. And I've covered a lot of lame duck situations at Michigan State. When George Perlis was fired, the rest of that season. When Bobby Williams was fired, the rest of that season. When John L. Smith was fired, and the rest of that season. But when Perlis was fired, you knew that Tony Banks was coming back for the next year's coach. Turned out to be Nick Saban. When Bobby Williams was fired, you knew Jeff Smoker was coming back. And he had some issues of his own, but he was coming back with some other NFL players. And then when John L. Smith was fired, you knew Brian Hoyer was coming back. And Brian Hoyer started at the end of the year as a sophomore at Penn State. Mark D'Antonio inherited him, had 2 years with Hoyer. That helped get the program jump-started. This day and age, you don't know who's coming back. I would imagine some of the Michiganders are more likely to come back. Jalen Thompson, Jaden Mangum. We'll have to wait and see on someone from Georgia like Malik Spencer. You don't know. And that's one of the, when you fire a coach, it's even more crippling than it used to be, potentially. Now, I know you can do the Deion Sanders and flip a roster and bring in 40 guys out of the portal. Deion Sanders could do that. Not many others could do that. Not many other coaches. Probably no other coaches could do that. So anyone that thinks that that's a possibility, that's tough. It's gonna be a longer rebuild than that, and that's the sad thing. Because Leavitt does look good. He looks good for the future. I would love to tell you that you're Michigan State fans. You would love to hear that he's going to be a Michigan State Spartan for 3 years, but none of us can guarantee that. But he looks good. Quick feet, sharp release, zip. The reads last week against Michigan were good. The reads this week, trying to think the touchdown, the slant, that was nice. But he looks good. Question 5, Docker from Grayling, Michigan. He says, has the coaching staff cashed it in? No. I mean, they're professionals. They're trying to win. They don't want to go 2-10. Barnett certainly has not cashed it in, and he continues to try to represent Michigan State well in terms of recruiting. For what they can do recruiting. All that they can do recruiting-wise, and Barnett cares about Michigan State. And Barnett had an interesting comment in the post-game press conference. He says he's just coaching and trying to get them to play for Spartan pride, for the program. That's the right thing to say. And Barnett's heart is definitely in the right place there, because you know that he's a Spartan dog, maybe the original Spartan dog. As far as recruiting goes, he knows he's not the head coach next year, but as the steward of the program, as Mark D'Antonio would say, he's reaching out to the commitments, reaching out to other recruits in the 2025 class, 2026 class, extending offers, so at least those players can say they have a Michigan State offer. They visited Michigan State. Michigan State at least is in their brain a little bit for the next coach, so it's not completely brand new. That's why he's doing it. I respect him for that, and I think Michigan State fans probably should as well. Question 6, Wolfpack from Denver, Colorado. He says, honestly, there's only one question for most of us. Who are the most likely candidates that Michigan State is looking at, and your guesstimate of how likely each of them are going to be the one who is hired? Great question. I understand that. That's what everybody's talking about, thinking about, and that is the most important question for the Michigan State football program. We talked about this on Monday, and I gave percentages on that. I think I guessed on Monday I said 15% Urban Meyer, 15% the field, and whatever's left, I had Jonathan Smith, Mike Elko. Depending on what Iowa State does against Baylor and the most recent body of work with Matt Campbell, Campbell could get in there also. Right now I've got him in the chase group in the field. But, could others get in there? Most likely, Michigan State is still going to interview these people, and I don't know who's going to interview well. And if you're interviewing Jonathan Smith, Mike Elko, at some point, a lot of it's going to come down to personality, or what they demonstrate. How badly do they demonstrate that they want the job and they feel like they've got a plan for recruiting locally, regionally, nationally, all those things. Nick Saban, as you would imagine, had a great interview when he was at Michigan State, right? And interviews with a lot of coaching searches don't take place anymore. But there will be some interviews of some sort. I talked to Alan Haller about this when we were at Iowa, and he said, yeah, there will be face-to-face interviews in this process. How can you do that when some of these coaches are coaching right now? You wait until the regular season's over, and you have to do it really quickly, probably that week. And, there were some indications that Mike Elko might not be interested. Now, I think that I have it from good sources that he will listen, he will be in there. To the point of interviewing, to the point of meeting somewhere to interview, don't know. Jonathan Smith, will he meet somewhere to interview? Yes. Matt Campbell, will he meet somewhere to interview? Yes. We'll have to wait and see what his season looks like. But, like I said, the bodies of work for their resumes are still being put together. And in the meantime, that's one theater of it. The other theater is the Urban Meyer theater. And we've got some more questions about that here in a moment. Question 8, WX Spartan from Wixom. He says, Lance Leipold, Jonathan Smith, or Mike Elko. If you could guarantee one, who would it be? Question. All right. I don't really understand the question. Do you mean if I could have one, if I could have one of those coaches? I don't know. I'm not exactly, every hand's a winner, every hand's a loser. I thought Scott Frost was the most no-brainer hire in the last 20 years of college football, and he went under. Mark D'Antonio was 18-17 at Cincinnati, good hire. Did I think he'd be that great? No. Nick Saban's the best college coach of all time. He was a 500 coach for 4 years at Michigan State. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I've got a crystal ball and can tell you which of these coaches would be the best, but I've been very impressed with Mike Elko. Not today, but hey, he's in year number 2. Nick Saban had some blowouts in year number 2 at Michigan State, and when he was at LSU, he lost to UAB, I think it was, And when he was at Alabama in year number 1, he lost to Louisiana Monroe. So coaches that are still early in their tenure, things like that are going to happen, and the timing of of going to Louisville today against a good Louisville team was not good for Elko. But Elko, I'm impressed with what they do on defense. Impressed. They're multiple and sound and tricky with moving parts. I got to check out something real quick. Don't want to get locked out over there. All right, so I like Elko a lot. I think Leipold would do real well for a short period of time. I don't know how long, but talking to Mooby about this, I know Mooby likes Ron Armstrong, Big Mooby, our esteemed colleague and analyst. He likes Leipold because he thinks he's got a lower floor than the others. He would solidify things and create a nice program. If you had someone like Leipold or Urban Meyer, the next question would be the successor question. And I don't want to go, well, I will look far ahead, just talking hypothetically. If Meyer's the head coach, you'd have a big bankroll to fund assistant coaches. That's been discussed and talked about, and that's part of the package that's been structured. The money that would be available for an offensive coordinator under Urban Meyer, the offensive coordinators around the country that would be interested in being an offensive coordinator for Urban Meyer, not only to coach for him, but also to be compensated in a way that would be commensurate with an Urban Meyer staff. And then secondly, what would that lead to for the future? Look what happened at Ohio State. He had Ryan Day. He retires. Ryan Day's the new head coach. So with Meyer at this age now, theoretically, if he became head coach, I'm guessing that the offensive coordinator would be not technically or officially head coach in waiting, but would have a very good chance to become the next head coach. So could you go out to Washington and get Grubb, the offensive coordinator out there? I've asked around about that in the industry, and I heard it would be very, very expensive to get him. But something like that's not outside the realm of possibility. But first of all, you have to hire that guy, which is still going to be difficult. All right, question 9. Silent Sparty from Atlanta says, if you were in the locker room for player interviews, what were the demeanors of Katon Hauser and Sam Levitt? Good question. And credit to you, Silent Sparty, for still watching Michigan State football and being interested in post-game reactions. They were not available for interviews, interestingly. They did not come out for interviews. For interviews, it was Cal Halliday, Jaden Mangum, and Montori Foster. We've got those interviews right here on the SpartanMag YouTube channel. And in the meantime, make sure to give us a like, subscribe to this channel, and we'd love to have you as a SpartanMag.com subscriber. Another question, I think this was also from Silent Sparty from Atlanta. Not so silent tonight, by the way. He says, is this the worst Michigan State staff you've seen in your time covering Michigan State? If not the worst, since when? If it's not, it's the worst since when? That Bobby Williams staff, they had Morris Watts at offensive coordinator. Bill Miller was defensive coordinator, and I liked a lot of the things Bill Miller had done earlier. Troy Douglas was corners coach, defensive backs coach, and he struggled. Bobby Williams. Jeff Stoutland was offensive line coach. He was pretty good. This staff with Jay Johnson, Scotty Hazelton. The John L. Smith staff, they had Chris Smealand, not so good on defense. I thought Dave Baldwin was a pretty good offensive coordinator. They had Stoutland also as offensive line coach. It would be in the running, and just based on, what's going on and some of the decisions and so forth. But anyway, let me check something else real quick. I'm getting a little nervous about something right here. In the clear still. But we are going to have to wrap it up in a minute. Question 10 from Bam from Cincinnati. He says, why can't this team ever stop the run? Well, ever is a mighty strong word, because last week against Michigan, believe it or not, they held Michigan to their worst per carry average of the season. It's 3.7 per carry. But Michigan did damage to the tight ends, of course. But Michigan State, and we mentioned this in the VCast with Konendijk earlier this week. I said Michigan State sold out with a lot of heart to stop the run and contain the run against Michigan to the point where I thought that it tenderized Michigan State, that it has a way of carrying over in this sport, especially this time of year. That's one reason Michigan State rushed for 160 against Iowa, because Penn State had tenderized Iowa the week before. Iowa played 92 defensive snaps against Penn State. Michigan tenderized the Michigan State rush defense. The rush defense was good for 3 quarters. Good for 3 quarters. 2.9 per carry. In the VCast earlier this week, I said Michigan State's run defense was good comparatively against Michigan, compared to what they do against most opponents. But I said Minnesota's going to rush for 250. Well, if Darius Taylor had been here, maybe they would have rushed for 250. And I thought that Minnesota would be good on the ground from the beginning, partly because Simeon Barrow wasn't going to be there. Well, Barrow was here, and he helped a little bit. If they hadn't had Simeon Barrow, they would have rushed for 250, and it would have happened earlier. Barrow is not great, but you take him out of that rotation, and everybody else gets a flat tire. So Minnesota rushed for 200, not 250, but I said on Monday that was going to be the case, or Tuesday. So you say, why can't they ever stop the run? They stopped it for 3 quarters. They contained it last week. They stopped it for 3 quarters against Rutgers. I think the more fair question is, why did they collapse in the 4th quarter? Rutgers game, they kind of froze. But this game, it becomes a physicality thing. Is it a mental thing? No, it's not much of a mental thing. Is it a personnel thing? You got 3 linebackers. Do they wear down a little bit? Halliday, Brule, the freshman Hall. Defensive tackles, they're down to 3-man rotation there again. Sami's in there a little bit, but they complained last year that they only had a 3-man defensive tackle rotation. Wore down. Now this year, Barrow's back after being gone for a couple days. And you've got Maverick Hansen in there doing what he can. Good, solid player. Not a great player, not a difference maker, but he's a good, solid guy. Derek Harmon, quite frankly, was good last year, looked real good. Expected him to take a jump this year, and he kind of hasn't. He's just kind of been okay. So he didn't take a jump. Barrow didn't take a jump. Sami's just kind of been a guy. Didn't get much out of Dre Butler. He was looking good earlier in the year. Went down with a season-ending injury. Jarrett Jackson got nothing out of him, which didn't surprise me much. And Van Sumeren's been hurt all year. Defensive tackles, very key in stopping the run. But the 4th quarter, it was a repeat of the Rutgers game. And that's my thought right now without watching the film. But not the sign of a good team or a winning team, obviously. And they are on a dire losing streak. Let me look here at the comments, and then we'll shut it off and move on with our Saturday night. I've got some other stuff I need to write. Rob South checking in. Doors fan checking in. Good to see him. Hayden Roberts asked to talk about Urban Meyer. I've compared notes a little bit with Justin Spiro. And I know that he had a podcast this week, and he had a lot of good information there. And also Bernie Fratto out west, a guy with some Midwestern ties. Don't close the door on what those gentlemen are saying. I've got respect for them and their sources, looked into it, and they've got some good sources. I've got some good sources. We don't all have the same sources, and that's what's interesting, to pool them together and see what's all going on there. Spiro's got some good sources outside of the state of Michigan that I don't have, that are closer, relatively close to the Urban Meyer thing. I've got some sources in the industry, so to speak. And also, we all have sources in East Lansing and everything. But although they're trying to keep things close to the vest in East Lansing, things are more likely to break elsewhere. All right, so what's going on with this? There's rumors about, hey, they're about to hire him. I heard from a source of a friend of an uncle, and it's happening. Frankly, I've been hearing that for 2 weeks. And then when it doesn't happen through the course of a week, you kind of wonder about those things. Some of the football, the internal Michigan State football sourcing. There was a lot of optimism that it was going to happen 8 days ago. Didn't happen. Now there's other sourcing going on. I saw Alan Haller today, talked to him at halftime. Did not ask him about this stuff, but just watching him, he was on his phone and stuff. We talked about the football game and what happened in the first half and so forth. I could just say he didn't look like somebody that was on the verge of securing a new football coach. I think there's a lot of work still to be done. Now, we'll have to wait and see what happens, but those rumors about a hiring is coming like any second. I've been hearing that. I'll believe it when I see it. There have been stronger and stronger indications from good sources, going all the way back to when Urban Meyer, visited. I never verified that. Bernie Fratto reported that, and I don't refute that at all. I spoke to other sources. And like I said on the VCast 2 or 3 weeks ago, or on SpartanMag Live, I can't confirm that he was on campus 3 weeks ago. Do I think it happened? Yes, I do. Are big money people going after him? Yes, they are. A lot of people have confirmed that. Did Urban Meyer want some additional structuring, from what I understand? Yes, he did. And yes, there was discussion. And when I say that Urban Meyer has returned to volley on Michigan State's interest, there is interest back and forth. That's been going on for a few weeks. Have they looked at some financial things? Yes. Do I have evidence that some Michigan State financial people from the athletic department have left East Lansing to discuss these things? Yes, there is evidence of that. With Meyer. Maybe not with Meyer, but maybe with his people. There's evidence of that. So things are in place in that theater, the Urban Meyer theater. The other theater is the other people. Jonathan Smith, Mike Elko, maybe Matt Campbell. They were interested in Kleiman at Kansas State, but from what I heard initially, Kleiman said he did not have any interest at this time. Kleiman's 51 years old, did a good job at Kansas State. Previously did real well at North Dakota State. Kansas State 6-2. They won the Big 12 last year. They blew out Houston 41-0 today. Might they circle back to him? Maybe, but I don't think that's going to change a whole lot. There's others. There's been talk about Luke Fickell and so forth, and I don't close the door on that either. As far as Meyer goes, I said 2 weeks ago that the ball was in his court, and it is in a lot of ways. Does he want to come back and coach? I wasn't sure about that, but after speaking with some people, I think there are indications that he would like to coach, regardless of what he has said publicly. And that's the big part that I wasn't sure about. But talking to some people, I think that I'm less convinced that he doesn't want to coach. I'm more not convinced, but thinking that he does want to come back. Would he have wanted to come back to a different program? Maybe so. But Michigan State, he's always held with a lot of respect. So if this, he's not getting any younger. So if it's going to happen, it's got to happen quickly. This year, maybe next year. So Michigan State happens to be a bus with a vacancy, and he's at the bus stop. Do you pick him up? Michigan State wants to. Does he get on the bus? I can't tell you what he's thinking. So that's what I know about Urban Meyer at this moment. We'll keep our ear to the ground on that one. Some of my sources in the industry are room temperature Luke cold about it. It's others, in Michigan State football circles, it's a lot hotter. And that might just be wishful thinking. Then there's some other indications in other theaters that have piqued my interest, but I've not detected it in the industry, so to speak. And I'm not talking the media industry, coaching industry, and other things. And I don't really want to go into detail on that, but I've got my antennae up in that theater, and I'm not getting Meyer indications over there yet at this point. We've got, James Post says he was at the game and it was rough. Well, good for you, James. It was cold out there. Good for you. Hope you wore layers. Awesome stadium, he says. Sea-Dog says the onside kick was really dumb. Too much time left in the game. Noah Sprunger, appreciate his help. He is intern and then some for SpartanMag.com. JJ McKay from the Keweenaw says, sad when your coach shoots you in the feet. Lions 1956 says at SpartanMag, how does our special teams coach still have a job? They actually did pretty good today in special teams. JJ McKay says finally had some momentum after the Levitt touchdown. Stupid onside kick. We're gonna go ahead and sign off here in a minute. Let me see if there's any coaching. Foul language from James Post. He's cold. I'll let that slide. Sea-Dog says onside kicks rarely work. Just kick it deep, take your chances. You're exactly right. Onside kicks don't work very often. Calculated risk, and the risk reward was not a good one. It was not favorable. JJ McKay from the Keweenaw says he is the best we have. I hope they can keep Levitt. Greg K says reinstate Tuck immediately. All right. We're going to sign off here in a second. That's about it. All right, that's going to do it. I got some more work to do. Appreciate everybody checking in. Appreciate all your support over at SpartanMag.com. We'd love to have you as a SpartanMag.com subscriber as we continue to cover the Michigan State coaching search. Sometimes we might not have stories on the front, but inside the Underground Bunker message board, we are talking about the coach search all the time. And I can't always put everything that I hear on there, but I give indications and reveal some things. But in order to retain sources, I can't put everything out there. But I weigh in quite frequently, and a lot of others do that have some interesting sourcing on this as well. Anyway, appreciate everybody checking in, and we will have a Spartan Mag Live later in the coming week as Michigan State gets ready to play another game next week. Again, from Huntington Stadium in Minneapolis, Huntington Field, I don't know what it's called. We're in Minneapolis, University of Minnesota. Michigan State losing today. Those of you that are still watching Michigan State football, congratulations to you. And it's an interesting point in history, not only for Michigan State to hire a coach, but really when you look around the Big Ten and what's going on, and yes, the team in Ann Arbor and the problems that they have, if things crumble and they have to have a change over there, and Michigan State does bring in somebody like you-know-who, the things that could change in the next 3 weeks could be a polar shift of astronomical proportions. Is that going to happen? I don't know, but we will continue to cover it at SpartanMag.com. Thanks to everybody for checking in. We'll see you. Go to SpartanMag.com tonight. Become a subscriber tonight. Let's see you over there. Take care, everybody. SpartanMag.com with the Spartans from Minneapolis. You've been watching Spartan Mag Live.